So, the first Berserker Kazan just dropped a demo today at the time of me writing this, and I was pleasantly surprised. This isn't your grandma's code vein, but instead shaping up to be a rather fun Souls-like for those of you looking for more after Shadow of the Erdtree or Lies of P. Originally, this title was set under the codename Project Barbecue, and I'm about to kiss the cook with how great this can be. The full game doesn't come out till March 27th, so these are only my first impressions right after finishing the demo. The demo is free for anybody to try. By all means, check it out yourself and see if it's to your liking. Kazan was a game I was interested in due to the handsome and talented Ben Starr voicing the main protagonist.
You see me eat the banana?
After completing Final Fantasy XVI and being impressed by his and many other amazing voice actors in that game, I figured maybe this will have something I enjoy about it as well. Video on 16 dropping as soon as I can finish the script. From visceral combat to enjoyable level design and progression systems I'm a fan of, Kazan had me hooked from the get-go. Not to mention the interesting story premise. With that, let's get into it. If you enjoy game discussions like this, stick around and subscribe. I'll definitely make a video on the full game after I've gotten a chance to complete it, along with Final Fantasy XVI, and potentially a ton of Monster Hunter content on the horizon, with Wild soon to release. The first Berserker Kazan is a Souls-like game, but by that description don't go straight to Dark Souls as a point of comparison. While FromSoft may have started this subgenre, the games that are much closer in line would be the Nioh series, along with Wolong Fallen Dynasty. You're going to spend more time making builds, grinding for the perfect armor set, and messing around with the interesting skill trees. Don't interpret my words as the story taking a backseat though. If you're somebody that enjoys a cinematic approach to storytelling, you're definitely covered here as the intro cinematics are choreographed well for this gritty anime style the game has going. The game features NPCs to talk to, a companion of sorts, and Kazan is a fleshed out character with motivations and a past we've only cracked the surface of. The demo allows you to play through the first 2 levels of the game, and if you enjoy your time, your progress will carry over to the full release, which is nice. Kazan, the first Berserker, follows just the story of Kazan, an exiled commander deemed a traitor to the empire he once served. As he was being transported with his limbs cut off from his body, the caravan is attacked, leaving almost everyone dead except for Kazan. As Kazan makes his escape from the Empire, he wanders through the snowy mountaintops without too much being explained to us at this point. In Dungeon Fighter Online, the Berserker class is a slayer that has fallen under the Kazan syndrome, aptly named after Kazan, the god of destruction, as the warrior is in a bloody rage and loses control of themselves, destroying everything in their path. I can't say I'm too familiar with Dungeon Fighter Online, as aside from Kazan, I've only played the fighting game DNF Duel, which I didn't really look into the lore for. Kazan is spelled differently, as there is no H in Kazan, God of Destruction. Whether this is a new spelling or something to take a note of remains to be seen in the full game. Seeing that this is about a Berserker, I'm sure DFO fans will find more references and Easter eggs than I as the journey unfolds. Despite this, I'm excited to complete the story and recommend you check it out yourself to see if this is something up your alley. Just from the opening hours, you can tell the story and theme of the game will be a somber tale over something joyful like the Mana series of JRPGs. There isn't too much more to say about the story aside from some cutscenes from the end of the second mission, but what I think more people are interested in is the gameplay. Seeing as how the only other Souls-like anime aesthetic that crosses my mind is Code Vein, I'm sure people would like to know if this is going to follow a similar path, or will it be closer to the Souls games. If Lies of P can pass for a Souls game made by From Software, then this would fall closer to Nioh by Team Ninja, is what my gut is telling me. Whether the quality of that feeling will hold true to the end credits, I can't say, as these are the opening hours, and there's room for failure. If the builds don't stay interesting, or progression feels boring instead of something you're excited to do as you build towards your perfect Kazan. Kazan, from the early build, seems like a versatile fighter, specializing in 3 different styles: a dual-bladed fast approach, a spear that teeters between hard hits and swift strikes, or maybe you want to feel like Nuts from Zerk and live out your bonk fantasy, well, the Greatsword has you covered. Also, did anybody else catch that the devs are just as excited for Wilds as the next fan? Each weapon might seem simplistic off rip, as they're host to a basic 3-hit combo for a faster attack and a chargeable heavy, Where they differ can be found within the skill tree. Do you want the spear with an invulnerable dodge attack, the fast chain attacks of a short sword and axe, or maybe you want to cleave through foes with some meaty hits? Each weapon has different strong suits and abilities to complement them. The entire skill tree can't be seen currently, so how far it goes, if there's more weapons or more skills that can't currently be seen, remains for the final product. Each skill tree is host to different paths you can go down. So aside from picking a weapon you like, there are different ways to use the weapon and express yourself, which is nice. Altering follow-up hits, how you react to being attacked, whether you go for dodge attacks, perfect guards, or parries, there should be a playstyle here for everyone. If the weapon choices at your disposal don't seem too impressive to you, based on the pre-order bonuses of the deluxe, I wouldn't hold my breath for more weapons to be added in the base game, or too much difference from what we can see here. One thing that can be found throughout the gear is that set bonuses can unlock new abilities for Kazan to play around with, incentivizing you to not just invest into a skill tree you're happy with, but armor and weapons that will complement said playstyle, and I think this is where the game will shine. Also what I'm most excited for. As you progress through the game, you'll probably replace gear relatively often towards the start, as this doesn't follow the Dark Souls format of each piece of gear is identical. In the first Berserker, gear can be tied to rarity among with passive traits to enhance playstyles or stat bonuses you need. So if you enjoy Neo or even looters like Diablo or Borderlands, this is something to keep on your horizon. Enough about gear though, what about the levels and enemy design? This is the most polarizing aspect from one Souls-like to the next. Don't believe me? Go into the Dark Souls subreddit and say you like Dark Souls 2. See how mixed the reception is on that game for all it's worth. The first two levels only introduce you to a handful of elements. Some Souls fans will be used to, and others maybe not. There are environmental hazards, chests to loot, mini-bosses hidden throughout the area, checkpoints, and of course, bosses tied to each level. This level design is very reminiscent of Bloodborne or Lies of P to me. There are some pathways off the straight and narrow, but they usually lead to some sort of dead end with either gear for you to grab or a mini-boss to fight. I wouldn't say there's too much in the way of exploration at the start. The first level felt very linear, but the second level was a lot more open with a bunch of different nook and crannies to explore. So while I am saying it's limited, I do think there's potential. I'm just unsure of how far they've tried to push this aspect of the formula in their own game. Exploring didn't necessarily reap me any standout rewards at this time, and seeing as how gear sets are somewhat rehashed in favor of grinding for loot, that can potentially dull exploration or seeing a chest for different players. The enemy design was pleasant. There wasn't a single creature I ran into that made me despise my time, or too much of one thing to make levels or areas feel tedious to walk around, except maybe the boar. If you hated dogs in Dark Souls, forget that, the first Berserker will be sending these guys to chase you down. On the topic of being chased down, aggro range in this game can be a bit crazy, alongside one feature that I personally dislike in Souls games. Upon dying once and wanting to explore some pathways I missed, I decided to just run through some mobs I've already fought. This also allowed me to test out the aggro range of the mobs, which if you're not aware just means how far enemies will chase you after you get into combat with them. Some creatures didn't chase very far, such as most wolves eventually giving up chase, but the boar had no problems following me through so many different areas just to track me down, at this game's version of the bonfire. This might not sound like a problem at the start, as enemy packs are small and the boar isn't too tedious to deal with, but part of me does worry if they'll dial up the quantity of mobs on later levels due to their simplicity early on. These are just worries, nothing to really base this on, but one gripe that accompanies their massive aggro range is due to the boar following me all the way to the bonfire checkpoint, I was unable to rest at it, despite it being a ways away still. If you are engaged in combat, you won't be able to run away successfully and ignore mobs if they're tedious, or if you wanted to just run through an area. At some point in the level, you will have to deal with them, so just a heads up. Another thing I noticed is that when climbing ladders, if a projectile hits you, it will send you stumbling to the bottom. This can sound okay, but it means on reruns to bosses or areas using ladders, you might be forced to dispatch any ranged foes nearby anytime. With that said though, the runbacks in the demo are amazing. Both are right before their respective bosses, no enemies in between, no annoying things to traverse or tedious distances to travel, but a short hop, skip, and sprint to the boss room, and you're ready to try again. This instills confidence in me that the developers feel good about their boss design and aren't worried about if you found the level calming, as the bosses do pack quite a punch. Side note, your souls of this game spawn outside the boss room, so you never have to feel like you can't get your souls back, thankfully. As for the boss design themselves, the first one is an amped up Yeti. If you fought one of these mini bosses earlier in the level, then you might have some familiarity on how to deal with this boss already. And I like this. Paying attention and trying out tough encounters rewarded me with some preparation into the boss and what to expect. The boss still had unique moves and 2 phases, which was enjoyable, as even though this was the tutorial boss, I still lost a couple times and was excited to try again. The second boss, while enjoyable presentation wise and the way most attacks functioned, I did notice some problems with the game already. By default, everything you do in the first Berserker consumes stamina. While this sounds normal, the game's emphasis on you dealing with attacks through dodging, countering, hitting the boss during a stagger period, you might find yourself short on stamina almost all the time in a fight. As you're fighting each boss, aside from a health bar, they have a stagger meter. While this is a great addition, it also means that you'll want to lower that as soon as possible, for even the slightest misaction means the bar will regenerate quickly, causing you to miss out on a big punish window. This incentivizes you playing with almost 0 stamina at least, not taking gear and proper stats into account. I'm sure these will fix the issue, especially considering the stamina stat does increase your actual stamina recovery when leveled, but I wanted to mention this just in case. I do think you need to get a feel for it yourself to truly understand what I mean, so again, try the demo. If you're interested, and maybe you'll resonate with what I'm saying, maybe you won't. Regardless, that's something for you to figure out. Aside from being pressured to play at low stamina or keep up the offensive, this boss has a lot of multi-hit attacks. Some that when hit by one, you will get hit by a whole combo, which is fine. Do the wrong move, you should get punished for it to incentivize better play and keep up tempo and fight intensity. But some of the multi-hits feel like a chore to sit through after I've seen them the first 3 or 4 times. This is probably more so due to the stamina issue, as there are times where I feel like I can't dodge out of something, or I can dodge one hit but then the second one comes in and then I get comboed anyways, so I have to respect the boss despite having the opportunity to do something due to that low stamina. The second boss has a cool design and I like the arena and animations of this boss, but all the same I did start getting tired of the moves after a while. Another thing is that due to these multi-hits, you might have a window where you think you can sneak in a counterattack due to being able to dodge an attack and keep dodging, but not. In fact, sometimes dodging one and trying to get a hit in will get you punished, so it becomes important to pay attention to the entire pattern until it's finished to continue your onslaught. That is, unless you parry the boss or catch it during an attack that can be interrupted. Overall, I did enjoy the bosses, and they solidified I will be picking the game up at launch for myself to enjoy. Especially considering it'll be a month after Wilds, so the only other things that might be keeping my attention are Marvel Rivals or the Xenoblade Chronicles X Switch port, which I can't wait for as I love the Xenoblade series. With that being said, I hope my impressions were interesting or at the very least enjoyable to listen to, and if you'd care to agree, disagree, or just talk to me about what you think of Kazan the First Berserker, please leave it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day. If anybody would like, I could upload raw unedited footage of my gameplay for those that don't want to play and would just want to comb through footage themselves. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe for more RPG content and please enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and thank you for your time.